Huh. Kelly Rutherford action. I'm gonna
Well,
go
I'm
with it.
kind of a
I like
tomboy
it.
in real life. Like you know what I mean? So a little bit. So I kind of definitely have both sides to my personality. So
I
yeah,
love
I love,
I like that.
yeah.
I like that. Is
And
there
I've
if
done a little bit with Threat Matrix and E-Ring and all of that was a little bit like that. So I've done some things like that already. For
what
fun.
about, I mean, let's not forget your iconic starring part in Scream 3. And I'm being really serious. The Scream movies are great.
They're so good.
Did you enjoy doing horror and dying on
Oh my
camera?
God. I was just happy to have that sort of first moment in the film because it was sort of the moment everyone was doing and it was great and it was just fun. All those things are just fun to do.
That first moment, it's a hard, I think there's probably a line out the door for that moment. I mean, Drew Barrymore set the bar very high.
She did. She absolutely did.
So maybe some more horror movies in your future.
Oh, I don't know. I think the world is so crazy right now. Not crazy, it's evolving in such a way that, I don't know if we need more of that or I need to contribute more to that genre. But I
We need
prefer to
happiness.
yeah, there's a lot of fear going around. So I don't know. Maybe we'll do,
Is it hard to do comedy? I've heard from so many actors and actresses that like comedy, physical comedy, all of that is some of the hardest. Like, do you find that more challenging as an actress?
in some ways, but comedy is so personal, right? Like I remember reading for certain sitcoms and I don't think this is funny at all. It wasn't my humor. So it's really sort of, and when we've been looking for a writer for this show I'm producing now, and I sort of like, okay, who would get this type of comedy that we're trying to go for? Because there's many comedy writers and all of them are brilliant, right? But which one's going to get this tone and this type of comedy? So I think I think comedy is very much more specific than we realize.
I think so. I mean, look, I love a good comedy on TV. They're some of my favorite shows, like 30 Minutes, just get out. It's like, they're really fun.
So great.
Have you ever been involved, like, you mentioned like the OC for like a movie or a TV show where like you were in the mix and now it's like a part that we all know? Like Leslie Grossman tells a story from American Horror Story that she was in the mix for like Claire Dunphy from like Modern Family. And you're like, oh my God, well, that's interesting. Were you ever in the mix for something like that where you're like, where the rest of us would be like, oh my God, you almost,
Well, it's interesting because I read for Sex in the City and I did read for Desperate Housewives too. So those were two that I read for that I didn't end up doing. But I'm thankful though, because I think who they cast was perfect. Do you know what I mean? So in hindsight, I wouldn't have been available to do the things that I did, which I really enjoy doing. So you learn to sort of trust, I mean, so much in that you end up in the right place, right?
I agree. And that's like another part of the business. Like, I think if you're in it long term, what's supposed to happen happens. And that's millions of people don't get parts or just it's all day. But
Yeah.
what role did you read for in Desperate Housewives? And what role did you read for in Sex and the City?
God, I'm trying to remember. It might have even been Marcia's role. I think it was Marcia's role in in Desperate Housewives. And then Sex in the City, it might have been the more conservative girl, the dark-haired. I want to say it was her part, but I'm not sure.
I could see those were the two parts that I would have thought.
I think those, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You could have been Brie Vandekamp. I mean,
Woodsen, Vanderkamp, whatever. It's like,
I could see this, and I could see you in Sex in the City as the Kristen Davis, as the Charlotte. Makes total sense to me. If you could work with like any actor or actress, like in any capacity, like movies, plays, TV, like whatever who would you love to work with in this business? If like just the sky were the limit and the project were right.
Like I would love to work with some of these interesting, like Catherine Deneuve would be fun to work with, or Isabelle Huppert. I like some of these European actors a lot, or like Luc Besson, I think, because he does that action thing so well, and Jean Reno. But there's just so many. Gosh, I don't even know where to begin. Honestly, James Bond, whoever plays the next James Bond, I want to work with.
Let's just put that out into the world that you're going to be in the next James Bond movie.
Okay, thank you.
Living in New York City, at least part of the time, what are your favorite, like what's some of your favorite restaurants or places in New York, from one New Yorker to the next?
I love Bilbo K uptown. I love Locklear for like tea or a little thing. I love the garden in Soho. There's a great place called, what, you love
I was
it
going to
too?
say, well, Le Biblique is one of my go-tos, like that whole area, but Locklear is to me one of the most, like, just that space. Like if you were ever going to have an event, I think it's amazing what they did in the Soho one.
So beautiful. And then there's a great place called Neil's Diner on the Upper East Side. Like, I think it's like Lexington or 3rd and like 71st or around there, but it's Neil's Diner. Oh my God, they have the best chicken soup and it's so good.
It's so funny. So I've lived my whole adult life downtown. Like, I mean, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but like, so I've been in like the West Village, but I am looking and I'm moving and I'm going to buy something up to, like, I'm moving to the Upper East Side. And I can't really say those words too easily, because like just the concept, I'm such a downtown, but the bottom line is like, I love that area and that's where all my friends are and that's where I spend all my time. I'm like, if you told me I would say this, like when I was 24, I would have told you were literally insane.
I know. And you got Central Park and all the museums. It's just you change, you grow up, what becomes sort of, it's fun to go downtown to dinner or go to fun things and then come back to the quiet Upper East Side.
And like,
yeah,
I had this epiphany, like in a way it is the real New York. Like when you think of New York, it is like that Midtown up or East Side is it's what I grew up knowing. It's like, I'm like, oh, I don't know, like a light bulb went on and like, I'm literally,
yeah.
So I get it. Le Biblique is amazing.
So
when you were on Gossip Girl, speaking of housewives, Tinsley Mortimer starred on, she was in 3. Did you work with her at all? Like, did you have scenes with Tinsley?
I don't know if we had a scene, but I used to see her at events all the time, so I just knew her socially from, events and things.
That's why Gossip Girl was so great, because like she was the it girl. Like Cyndi Lauper was on there. She lives on the Upper West Side. Like that's what was great about Gossip Girl, is they brought people on as themselves, which made the authenticity of it so much better.
I agree.
What have you ever had a project where, like you said, Melrose was lightning in a bottle, Gossip Girl, you loved both jobs, they were both huge hits. Have you ever had a project where you're like, I know that this is not great, either a TV show or a movie, just like as an actress, like, could you tell? I mean, you're signed on, and then how do you handle that?
Gosh, I'm trying to think.
Because it happens to everyone, right?
Yeah.
She's very cute, or he's very cute, by the way.
Twomley, come here, my love. Come here.
We love all. We've had many a dog and a cat on this very podcast, so we welcome.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I mean, there's a lot of pilots that you do that you think, I don't know if this is going to get picked up. Like there's been those, but then you're always surprised, right? So, I mean, I think you just do it and then there are other things you think are great that you think would go. Why wouldn't they go forever? They're so good. But a lot of it becomes about like, who's now running the studio? You do the pilot and then there's a new studio person that comes in and they're like, okay, we want to redo everything. And you're like, okay, well, so it has really not so much. I very rarely had an experience where I thought the show was not good enough to be picked up per se, but you kind of knew the politics around it that might have been definitely having an impact on whether it would get picked up or not.